welcome to Coleman Report Friday. Take two. Welcome to Coleman Report Live, Fraud Friday edition. I'm Bob Coleman, and we're talking Main Street and the small business lender who helps it grow. Lance, bail me out here, man.
Well, Bob, we forgot to tell people it was happy hour out in Los Angeles, but no. Good to be here on Fraud Friday, and I'm looking forward to our fraud stories.
There you go. And welcome, Delaney, our fraudster in chief. All right, let's move on. Number one, do you support adding more small business lending company licenses to concentrate on smaller dollar loans? Currently, they've been capped at 14 for, oh my word, 40 years, 50 years, Lance, as long as I've been around.
And the problem with this, Bob, is...
Oh, wait for the poll. Wait for the poll. Wait for the poll.
I guess I telegraphed my answer.
Go ahead. Well, yeah, you work for one of the 14. Go ahead.
Well, the struggle with this, even before I came to work at Fountainhead, the struggle with this is these 14 are regulated by SBA. So SBA, serves like the FDIC, the comptroller, the currency, other regulators, but they regulate these 14 non-bank lenders. And the big question is, does SBA have the capacity and ability to let that number grow? At this point in my life, I'm not a fan, and it wouldn't matter if I worked at Fountainhead or Bank XYZ. I'm just not real sure SBA has the capacity to regulate additional non-bank lenders, but I could be wrong.
And Lance, this is a general question for you. Is SBA somewhere someone believes the industry is not doing its job in making these smaller dollar loans to underserved markets?
Well, and we had someone last week. We had somebody on here who was a community advantage lender.
Right, Stacy.
And that program is a great vehicle to provide service to those smaller dollar loans in underserved markets. So instead of, I am a fan of using the programs you have, making the programs, instead of adding new non-bank lenders, why not add funding to existing programs that you have, increase guarantee percentages.
There you go. You and I are in the same. Hey, yeah. Joseph, can you put our pictures back up? So.
Yeah. But, on any SBA loan under, say, $100,000, Bob, it's a 90% guarantee, no matter how you process it.
Or even 95% and lower the fees. That would certainly or do what we did with PPP, 100%. I'm not advocating that, but if you increase that percentage, the lenders will respond. So I believe you're going about this the wrong way. I have no dog in this fight. If they want to add more lenders, fine. I don't care. But I think the answer is let's just raise the guarantee percentage, Lance.
Well, there are plenty of good SBA participant lenders throughout the country, both bank and non-bank. So, and I guess the thing that bothers me about this is they're focusing on adding non-bank lenders, and they forget about the tons of participant banks who are bank SBA lenders. They're not saying, hey, guys, we have a program to help you make more smaller dollar SBA loans to help penetrate underserved markets. And I promise you, having worked for a medium-sized bank, a $30 billion bank, we wanted to reach those underserved markets. We wanted to make those smaller loans because it helped us. Yeah. So I don't think the answer is adding new SBLCs. The answer is taking the existing programs that we have and enhancing those so the existing participant lenders.
Well, how many lenders, regulated lenders, are out there who don't make SBA loans? Bank lenders, 3,000? So probably closer to 2. Certainly provide incentives for those 2,000 that a stroke of a pen. as opposed to establishing whole new regulation and regulatory concepts and whatever. Anyway, that was announced. Vice President Harris announced that on October 4th. And that I believe that that's simply internally at SBA. That doesn't need regulations. So we'll see what happens. We'll be following that closely. Second poll question we have, Lance, and I want to talk about just a tad. I was at the National Alliance of Commercial Loan Brokers yesterday, gave a industry overview presentation, and that's my first event since COVID. I know you've been to some, and I certainly had a different perspective than I've had in the past. And I'm just curious what people are planning to do in 2023 regarding your attendance on going to on-site events.
Hey, Bob, I'm proud to announce on today's show, and I'm glad to see 41% are going to more.
Surprising, yeah.
I am proud to announce, Bob, I will be back at Mount this year.
Congratulations.
Last year I had a blood clot in my leg and was not able to travel, and that's the first Mount I've missed in 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll be back this year, guys. I look forward to seeing you all at Mid-America Lenders Conference, and I'll be at other conferences.
Give a plug. I mean, where in wind, Lance, since you're.
Bob, I'd have to go to my folder to get the dates. It's in San Antonio, Texas.
Okay.
Sometime in April, I think.
They do a great event.
Oh, yeah.
It's interesting, Joseph. 29% said they've gone completely virtual, which means they're not going to be attending. So 1/3 of the industry says we're out of the on-site traveling business. And I got to tell you, Lance, they're right in terms of resort fees, valet parking. Every place you turn around, they're adding more fees. And there's certainly the hotels and hospitality are making up for lost time and lost income. So it was an interesting experience. We are going to have a short clip on what I spoke about on our podcast. So if you want to take advantage of that, do that. Let's see. Delaney, welcome to the show. What's going on with our soon-to-be incarcerated friends?
Yes, Mr. Luke Jocelyn got 7 years, a pretty hefty sentence after a 3-day trial. I believe there was 2 other co-conspirators involved. I think they were tried separately. So he was applying for PPP loans, rather small, about $27,000 for a non-existent sole proprietorship. He used fake social security numbers or tax documents and all the works, but he then started coaching these other 2 people on how to do the exact same thing.
Of course, yeah.
So they continued to apply for smaller dollar loans, flooding the systems. And then as they got a little more comfortable, they later started applying for slightly bigger loans, more like $180,000 for companies that they did control but that were not currently operating.
Yeah.
So now he has to pay about $800,000 in restitution, along with forfeiting about $400,000 in assets.
Delaney, I see this coming up. Do you know what they are charging him with, what they allege he did for a stolen identity? What is that about? Do you know?
Why he was being charged for that? Yeah. He was stealing social security numbers, I'm assuming like just government identification. I'm not 100% sure.
Well,
they didn't specify exactly what he did.
This is probably another one of those cases, Bob. I don't know that they were doing this, but I heard a story from somebody locally who had received an email, and it had a link in the middle of the email, and click on it, and the first thing you had to provide was your social security number and address. And for a PPP fraudster, that's manna. That's like, all right, we're ready. But I'm surprised that the small dollar loans, that the average wasn't $20,833, because for a sole proprietor independent contractor, that was the max loan because of the $100,000 income cap. So there are tons of $20,833 loans out there, and probably quite a few fraudulent ones in there.
Delaney, you said that he has to pay restitution of $800,000. Does that mean that was the amount of loans that were funded? Obviously, he didn't get all this $2 million. Do we know?
The Department of Justice did not reveal all of that. I'm not 100% sure. I don't even know how many loans they managed to obtain. One thing I am curious about, and I would like your opinion, is we've talked about this before. He received 7 years. I didn't do my own research into seeing whether he had any prior criminal convictions of any sort. But why do you think it was 7 years? Because he was coaching others? Do you have any insight?
Yeah, I mean, what they're saying is the dollar amount is the same whether you received the money or not. A very rough, and this is rough rule of thumb is 1 year for $1 million. That's just, don't hold me to that, but that's approximately what we're talking about when you look at all these other fraudsters. So for him to get 7 years in jail, there was more going on. Well, first of all, he went to a jury trial, which is interesting. I'd love to know what his defense was. And as you said, it was a 3-day trial.
I think probably what got him the extra time was multiple applications.
Yeah.
And also bringing outside people in and coaching them on how to commit additional fraud. But I think that's probably what, if this was a $2 million single loan, single individual, probably wouldn't have been 7 years. Probably
1 year. Very good. So the takeaways are he did not get the entire $2 million and he got a hefty sentence. And also, this is 2022. He did this, we assume, 2 years ago. And the wheels of justice are moving very, very quickly on these fraudsters versus the years and years and years that they've dragged out the charges on the community bankers from the Great Recession. What else you got for us, Delaney? Go ahead.
I got to tell you real quick, Bob. Delaney sent me a PPP video from YouTube that just made me laugh real hard. So in my spare time, late in the evening before I go to bed, I'll search on YouTube PPP videos. There's an awesome one where a fake IRS truck shows up because it's a play off the addition of the new IRS agents and arrests a PPP borrower. Guys, if you want to see something funny, just go to YouTube and put PPP in the search category and see what you find.
We'll get that video. Joseph, let's get that link for Monday. We'll put that up. Is that the one with, you said, the crazy lyrics?
I'm not really sure, Bob, we can play these because some have some colorful language in them. So
okay, very good. All right, you know what? Withdraw that, Joseph. If you want to go down that rabbit hole, if you want to join Lance in the rabbit hole, go ahead. What did Mr. Lideker do?
So, no, this is 4 different people who were charged, but I really am going to focus on Jacob Lideker because he is the alleged ringleader of all of this. They applied for about $2 million, obtained $1 million allegedly, and they're claiming that he created false PPP loan applications for almost 100 people across the country. Wow. Again, these were smaller loans, about $20,000 on average. He would help submit false documents like tax documents, all of the works for his services. He would get a kickback. And so he would also allegedly assist in getting these loans forgiven.
Well, Father Lance, how many of these have you seen where you've gotten the forgiveness application? You go, wait a minute, something's wrong here.
Well, it's the larger applications are a lot easier to vet out problems. Now the smaller applications, they're doing a 3508S. There's little or no supporting documentation. I mean, you have to rely significantly on the borrower's certifications there, and you're just looking at, payroll amount, forgiveness amount, number of employees. So, but larger PPP loans, you have more documentation to review and are better able to find those who are fraudulently submitting.
what I find interesting in this is, and they've been the agency or those in charge have been criticized for not going after these smaller loans. The first two stories we've covered, Delaney, they're going after. These are loans that were smaller loans, and they're going after these people. So,
guys, I got a review request on a PPP loan that was an $872 PPP loan where they were asking for 16 documents for review. And I was just thinking to myself, the amount of time they took to come up with the list and the amount of time we're going to spend complying with that list is worth far more than the amount of money of that PPP loan.
that's, yeah. Speaking of questionable decisions, Lance, let me take a tangent before Delaney gets into her last story. You were told that SBA was going to release the SOPs in the last week of October or the first week of November. Lance, I'm checking my calendar, and we are in the last day of the first week of November. So I assume we'll get the SOPs, what, this afternoon?
Bob, I'm hoping, but I'm not hoping very hard. I really feel like that new release of proposed changes for comment with a comment date in December tells me it's probably going to be the first of the year.
And by the way, a shout out to certain SBA officials who have reached out to us to correct our reporting, Lance. We were called into the principal's office. We've changed the website. And
Now here, first of all, in looking at the report, there was nothing incorrect in the report.
We're not, no, this is not a defense. This is not a defense of us. This is an acknowledgement. Thank you for clarifying that we need to be a little bit clearer what we're saying. We accept that criticism. We embrace it, and we'll make sure everything on our website, everything we set out is 100% accurate. We go with that, Lance?
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, immediately when I saw it, I was able to share what the challenge was with what was released. But it's hard in this world when things change so quickly. And I don't know how many people on this call have read the proposed changes, but you have to read them about 25 times before you can. And the fun thing, Bob, is the changes are about simplification.
Yeah.
And you have to read them 12 times to figure out.
I think we made an error in a couple words.
Yeah.
The overall message was fine. It's how we presented it that they took issue with. So we accept that. We have no issue with it. Go to your last story, Delaney.
Whoa.
All right. I'm not sure if it was a month ago. It feels like it was pretty recently. We actually talked about Adedeo Lori, but now we finally have a conviction. He, along with a co-conspirator, applied for 14 PPP and economic injury disaster loans. Applying for $10 million, obtained $1 million. Of course, they inflated the number of employees, salaries, wages, all of the works, and when these companies were not actually operated by them. But of course, this is the exciting part. He used the funds for cryptocurrency investments, stocks, cash withdrawals, luxury apartments, and we did get a car, a Mercedes.
All right. What type of Mercedes?
That's all it said, is a Mercedes. Sorry to disappoint.
The problem is
if he funded these last year, he may have made some money. If he funded these beginning of this year, he's out of luck. Again, it's $10 million. He's convicted. We don't know what his sentence will be. But no, see, he got $1 million out of an attempted $10 million. So, again, an easy one, a slam dunk.
I do think he'll get, sorry, I'm going to finish this. I think he might get a heftier sentence because he committed these offenses while he was facing charges in a separate case involving fraud, identity theft, and money laundering.
Yeah, I think, yes. Well, very good. Thank you all for joining us. Oh, there we go. Thank you, Joseph. Sign up for that if you're so inclined. Malk does a great job. Let me see there. I can focus on you again. And good. Well, everyone have a nice weekend. Thank you for joining us today for Coleman Report Live and for supporting America's Main Street, one entrepreneur at a time.
Have a great
Have a nice
weekend.
weekend.
Thank you for joining us today for today's episode. If you like today's content, hit that subscribe button to subscribe to our channel and click that bell icon to get notified about our latest videos. Thank you again for joining us today and for supporting America's Main Street, one entrepreneur at a time. Catch you next time.